Continued unrest in Gaza prompts renewed discussions of
They
Palestinian
literally blew up
statehood
a school
and
bus filled with kids,
ISIS-linked
and they
arrest
had
reported in
spied and
California.
watched it and were aware of the fact that it was a bus filled with kids, right? So the dumb prime minister of Israel at the time, Ariel Sharon, who in a prior life was one of the most brilliant military generals in possibly in human history, but as a politician, he just became corrupt and horrible. He decided that the solution was is that if there's a clear border, a delineated border, there are no more quote unquote settlements with Jews living in that area. If we can give the people of Gaza their own autonomy, then what they're going to want is peace. And we're going to have Monaco next to us. We're going to have Singapore, right? It's a little Riviera on the ocean. It's beautiful. It could be developed like Trump wants to do almost and into this beautiful, peaceful place, right? So the idea was if we uproot every single Jew who lives in Gaza and we make it Judenrein, which means Jew clean, we clean all the Jews out. We'll even uproot every single dead body from the Jewish cemeteries there. And by the way, Jews have a history of living in Gaza for thousands of years. So this is not some weird thing. There's been a continuous Jewish community in Gaza for thousands of years. So Israel, its own soldiers, were forced to go in there and uproot every single Jew who lived there, forcefully evacuating them. And the people didn't want to leave. The people were like, these are beautiful homes, beautiful communities. We love living here. We have Arab neighbors that we sometimes get along with when they don't try to kill us. But like, why are you kicking us out of our own land? And under Ariel Sharon, the Israeli army did exactly that by force. They forced everybody out of there. And the whole world hailed Ariel Sharon as this amazing peacemaker. Wow, this is such a brave thing to do. And to me, even though I was a teenager at the time, and to many other Israelis and sane people around the world, it was like, wait, this is absurd. You are giving a prize to terror for terrorizing you, right? Because in the one sum game of Islamism, if they attack and then you give in, they don't see it as concession, as a peaceful concession. All they see it is that they're winning, they're victorious, and it's one step closer to evacuating you, to killing you, to getting you out of the area. And like we said, it's not just about Israel. They want to forcefully convert all Christians and all non-believers into Islam, right? The concept of Palestine as an independent state. So first of all, the name Palestine is very interesting. It comes from the Romans who, trying to distance the Jews from their land, decided to rename it and call it Palestine. Then Palestine was part of various empires, concluding with the Ottoman Empire. It didn't have any name for thousands of years. And then when the British decided to retake control, they decided to give it, again, the name Palestine. And if you look at any of the coins or newspapers or stuff like that from the British Mandate period, anytime it said Palestine, they were mostly referring to the Jews of Palestine. They used to call the Arabs, they're just Arabs, right? Or Middle Eastern Arabs or Sham Arabs, etc. But they weren't considered, there was no independent state ever. So that name is false. It was a name that traditionally referenced the Jewish land. But again, I've got no issue with Palestinians having a statehood. I think that's phenomenal. For years, I was for that until I discovered that when Palestinians want a state, they want a state with no Jews. They claim that they want an independent state and they'll tell you this to your face, is that they want to destroy the Jewish state. And even when Yasser Arafat agreed to the two-state solution, he basically said one state would be Palestine, and that state will not have a single Jew in it. Okay, that's not surprising. The second state, he didn't even say what it is. He didn't say he would recognize Israel. Instead, it would be a democratic state with the right of return. So, unlike war, what's it called? When somebody runs away from war.
You're using refugees.
Refugees, thank you. So, unlike refugees from everywhere else around the world, the Palestinian refugees are very unique because instead of being a refugee for 2 or 3 years until they're resettled like every other refugee, they have this special organization called UNRWA that gets more funding than all other refugees do all over for the entire world combined, and has been perpetuating this narrative for decades that Palestinians are refugees forever. And even if they've settled in Jordan, which is the original Palestine or Palestinian land, even if they settled in Syria or anywhere else, they will forever be Palestinians because the objective is to annihilate the Jewish people and put the Palestinians back there. And obviously, that's why there were 7 wars. All the Arab countries around Israel tried to annihilate Israel time and time again. This perpetual refugee situation is for one purpose and one purpose only, and that's the right of return. And that's basically to have the international community force Israel to accept in tens of millions of Palestinians. They're like, wait, only 500 to 800,000 people were evacuated in 1948. Those were the original refugees. Most of those died. How is Israel like? Where are 15 million people coming from? And that's because only UNRWA gave all Palestinians for all future generations the endless perpetual refugee status. So therefore, the right of return means 15 million people who were never born there, never lived there, never returned there, who were never kicked out to return and then turn Israel into an Islamist country because it's a democratic country with now a majority of another 15 million Muslims in addition to the 2.5 million Muslims that already live in Israel peacefully. So they don't say we want a two-state solution. They say we want a Palestine with no Jews, and then we want another state that's majority Muslim, where the Muslims will rule because of democracy, and then turn Jews into second-class citizens like Islam requires. So the entire concept of Palestine is not to build a new state, it is to destroy another state. And that's the problem. If they had one constructive bone in their body, they would have turned Gaza into the beautiful country that it has the potential of being. And Mahmoud Abbas would have turned the West Bank into the beautiful country it has the potential of being. But instead of that, they're focused on one thing only, and that is to destroy Israel and to kill Jews. I highly recommend people watch Einat Wilf, WILF. She is brilliant. She's done extremely in-depth research on the topic. She was a hardcore leftist for many years. She was a hardcore peace person, and until she realized that basically not a single Palestinian ever has publicly said, aside from 3, that they recognize Israel and they recognize the right for Israel to exist. And that's the thing. I'm all for Palestine as long as they're willing to say we let Israel exist as a Jewish country next to England is a Christian country. There are 23 Muslim countries, so Jews have the right to at least have one tiny little country where they're not prosecuted, because what we've been seeing all over the world is that Jews are prosecuted. And then one thing to President Macron and Mark Carney of Canada and two-tier Keir Starmer of the United Kingdom, they are giving a prize to Hamas. The reason Hamas committed the atrocities of October 7th was in order to force the Jews out of the land. And the way that they're doing it, Hamas has been doing it through violence. The Palestinian Authority has been doing it through the claims of statehood, right? So by recognizing the claims of statehood of Palestine, quote unquote, what they're doing is they're giving a prize to Hamas. They said that unless Israel agrees to a ceasefire, then they're going to do this. The problem is Israel has agreed to the last 5 ceasefires. It's Hamas who's been declining these ceasefires, but they never criticize Hamas. And on that, I just want to touch on one last point, and that's the Red Cross, not to mention UNRWA, the UN agency in task of educating the Palestinian people, has instead indoctrinated them into terror. Almost every single UNRWA teacher is a local Gazan who works with or has family members in Hamas. Took part in October 7th. The teachers held hostages in their homes. And I highly recommend people listen to the GHF. That's the new Gaza Humanitarian Fund. That's the American organization feeding people in Gaza. And he's been doing some interviews, and he explains brilliantly the difference between what they're doing and what the UN, especially UNRWA, has been doing, which is trying to keep the conflict going. One last note about the Red Cross. They haven't once requested from Qatar or Egypt or Hamas to see the hostages, to treat the hostages. They don't care about the hostages. Yeah, what are your thoughts on the topic?
Yeah, and we've covered this in prior episodes, UNRWA, and kind of the crookedness and the enabling that it has created in the region in a negative way. I think the important thing for folks certainly listening here in the United States is to understand, because this is halfway across the world, it's how does it really affect everyone here? And it does, because the United States isn't immune from these same problems. And like our neighbors to the north, as was pointed out in that clip, have the largest contingency in the world of Muslim Brotherhood, which is not a social organization that
Hamas is part of the Muslim Brotherhood.
Right. That is,
Right.
it's not an organization that's just meeting for tea and crumpets. Okay. There are real things happening. And just this week, there was reporting of an ISIS fighter basically on U.S. soil, which had improvised explosives. We put that clip up to just put things in perspective for how this isn't halfway around the world. This is here as well. Might get worse. Might get much worse.
In Southern California, the feds were moving in to arrest a man on charges of supporting the terror group ISIS when they found what appears to be a homemade bomb in his home in Long Beach. Marianne Rafferty, live in Los Angeles with more on that story. Marianne.
Yeah, good afternoon, John. A shocking discovery as federal investigators were arresting a suspected ISIS operative, a homemade explosive device found inside his Long Beach, California home. According to federal authorities, the bomb was found during the arrest of a man accused of sending 12 electronic payments to ISIS and traveling overseas to fight for the terrorist group. FBI investigators say the suspect, Mark Lorenzo Villanueva, is charged with providing material support to a foreign terrorist organization. Villanueva is also accused of posting anti-America messages online, including an especially chilling one, "Honor to fight and die for our faith." Former acting ICE Director Jonathan Fahey telling Fox News, with 4 years of open borders before President Trump took office, federal agents are on the lookout for incidents like this one.
We know we had millions and millions of people not knowing what their motivations were, if they were here to harm us, how they were here to harm us, and they're all here and could harm us right now.
Now, the complaint against Villanueva includes an exchange with another ISIS fighter, which reads in part, Villanueva says, "My dear brother, are you a supporter of the Islamic State?" The unidentified suspect says, "Yes, I was an ISIS fighter. I was captured at 17 and released at the age of 30. Federal agents say their investigation unveiled social media messages and communications records, which all led to this arrest. And we'll be following this developing story and bring you any new details as we receive them.
That's crazy stuff, right?
Yeah, it's very crazy. Noteworthy is that he had the bomb in his home. He didn't find a warehouse outside of a neighborhood filled with people. By the way, I wouldn't be surprised if this person had a wife and kids living in the home. Who cares if he's building a bomb in the garage? It is par for the course, right? That's what we see is when Israel, the reason why so much of Gaza is destroyed in terms of buildings are devastated and collapsed is because Hamas has booby-trapped basically every single, or at least every other building, every other apartment, every other room, every other house in Gaza, right? So basically right out of that playbook, you build a bomb in your home. Who cares if your own wife and kids live there? Who cares? In the worst case scenario, they will service in the phenomenal name of jihad and be an honor and respect for all Muslims around the world, unfortunately.
Scary stuff, but it's important to stay informed. Like, comment, subscribe, and hit that notification bell to watch all the content from the YoJoeShow podcast.